Hello and welcome to the Spotlight on Sophos podcast. My name's Connor. I'm one of the new BDMs into Sophos at Arrow. I've worked in distribution for the past 8-9 years or so across multiple different security vendors. And the idea around the Spotlight on Sophos podcast is to share some knowledge around Sophos, the distribution channel market, and where Sophos sees kind of growth and develop opportunities that hopefully you as the partners can take advantage of, and hopefully make yourself a bit more money. I'm joined today by John, who I'd hope most of you know, and if not, I'll let John do a little introduction himself.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks for having me on. So my name's John Hope. I'm Senior Technology Evangelist at Sophos. I've been here at Sophos since 2011. Came really by accident. I was running the firewall business in the UK and Ireland for one of two firewall vendors that Sophos have acquired over the years. And I've been here ever since. My current role involves a lot of public speaking and going through the extensive research that we do and doing things and activities just like this.
Perfect. Exactly the right person to have on today then. One thing I didn't touch on at the start then is we're going to be going over kind of multiple different topics as we go through the series. So today we're looking at touching on almost Sophos, almost like Spotify wrapped, but probably more Sophos wrapped as a review into 2025 and what Sophos have seen from a partner community, from threats, and potentially what we can see and expect from Sophos going into 2026.
Wow. Okay. How long have you got? Because cybersecurity moves at such a pace. There's a lot to go through. Okay. Should we start with maybe what the bad guys have been up to in 2025?
Sounds like a good place to start.
Okay. So obviously we've seen some pretty major attacks in 2025, some of which have actually had a real world impact on members of the public and actually even put a dent in the economy at one point. So we've seen some pretty high profile attacks, and cybersecurity and cybercrime continues to dominate the headlines. We've seen a lot of innovation from the cyber criminals during 2025, but maybe in some of the areas that you wouldn't necessarily consider. So we've seen a significant improvement in the way that cyber criminals go about social engineering. And this has happened really in conjunction with a move away from attacking targets purely at a technology level, because generally speaking, cybersecurity vendors like Sophos have got better at protecting using software and hardware. The cyber criminals realise this, and they realise that actually the humans are now probably the most vulnerable part of any estate. So we've seen this big shift towards attacking the humans instead of attacking pure technology. And we've seen that through primarily social engineering, much more sophisticated social engineering than we've seen before. And one of the big drivers behind that has been the use of AI by the cyber criminals. So we've made it about 2.5 minutes in before we've mentioned AI, which is probably a record. But this is one of the areas where the cybercriminals have overcome challenges like the fact that, let's be candid, most cybercrime protagonists, they're not native English speakers. So, tools like ChatGPT and equivalents, they're all really, really good at helping you to get over that language barrier. All of a sudden, you become a native English speaker. So those little tactics we used to tell people about looking for emails that are maybe poorly formatted, badly structured, badly worded, punctuation, grammar errors, doesn't really apply anymore because AI has just solved that problem. Yeah. But it does go a layer deeper than that. So cyber criminals use AI very heavily to replicate things like well-known brands, not just the brand imagery, but also things like brand tone of voice. And it's made it much more difficult to spot a fish.
Yeah.
So really, we need to be a little bit careful about looking at people who fall for it and click on links and stuff as being stupid, because now they're very, very good at what they do, and it can be very convincing. And this is often coupled with the cyber criminals conducting what's called OSINT, so open source intelligence gathering, to really understand their target. So we've definitely seen an increase in focused, targeted attacks versus just kind of randomly spray and pray kind of attacks with no forethought. So when cyber criminals now try to socially engineer individuals, they are making realities that fit the narrative that a user would expect much more accurately. So we see things like abuse of supply chain from a brand perspective. So they know that your courier might be FedEx, DHL, so they're targeting the right brand. They will know where you are geographically, so they're not going to target a company in Glasgow and try to attack them with some kind of TfL Oyster card scam, because again, that doesn't fit the reality. but also fitting people's realities by, we all have a massive digital footprint, and the cybercriminals love to gather their stuff up and create narratives around where you live and maybe what your pets' names are and all this sort of stuff to make it as accurate as possible. So that's definitely one of the big shifts that we've seen in tactics. And increasingly, identity and social engineering and human aspects are forming more and more of a part of successful attacks.
Yeah. I think there's as you say, there's been a fair few, and I think them kind of things have kind of developed. I'd say probably since COVID, maybe. You had all the Royal Mail attacks and kind of the shipping kind of notifications and the false shipping notifications. I think I've seen a few examples as well where you've had malicious code embedded into the reporting button on the phishing emails.
Right.
So you can notice there's obviously specific errors that have been put in there, so you'd notice it. But then when you click to report it as a suspicious email, that's where the payload's been put. So they've kind of got smarter and kind of changing the way that they've kind of put their attacks forward.
So utilising people's security awareness actually, but then weaponising it against them. Yeah, very clever tactic.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be nice to see what Sophos are doing going forward then to try and help kind of combat that. So I think obviously the ITDR products are probably something that's going to be at that kind of a forefront of some kind of partners' minds going forward then.
Absolutely. Identity continues to play a significant part in attacks, and that will only increase over time. It is an awful lot easier for a cyber criminal to log in than it is to try and break in using some sort of mechanism. And it is very difficult to spot these kind of attacks because from a pure identity functional perspective, if somebody presents the right token, they present the right username and password, whatever the mechanism is, how could you expect technology to know the difference between legitimate activity versus something that might be a little bit more malicious? So yeah, we're talking about ITDR as a relatively new addition to the Sophos portfolio, but it does help to address some of these challenges. It actually covers quite a lot of areas, which I think we'll probably explore in a future episode in a bit more detail.
Definitely. I think I think the majority of the attacks that have happened this year have been down to some form of identity issue, I suppose.
If you look at when you look at the state of ransomware report as a really good barometer, you'll see that identity and user activity plays a part in about 80% of attacks. It's increasingly common that a user's got to do something or be impersonated as part of the attack chain in order for the cyber criminals to see success.
Yeah, it's like, as you said earlier, it's easier to walk through the front door than it is to try and jump over the wall and go through all the kind of many layers of security that people have started embedding and started putting in, because people have started to understand you do need to have a security platform. You have multiple solutions and multiple layers, but as you say, the soft kind of underbelly, I suppose, a better way of putting it is the person operating the stuff in the background. Because if you misconfigure a firewall, you don't put the right rules and settings in the right place, then there's a gateway or something that's open straight away for a hacker or an attacker to be able to jump straight kind of into your network.
Absolutely, yeah. You've touched on an area that's probably one of the big success stories for us at Sophos in 2025, and that's been the concept of platformization. So obviously we have a very wide portfolio of products, and one of the things that we've worked on very hard in 2025 and will continue to develop is improving the use cases for Sophos technology to work together more effectively. So during 2025, we've seen things like active adversary protection, recognizing when we have a sustained attack, and using all the different control points that we offer at Sophos to actually regulate attacks. So our wireless access points and our switches have become part of the security infrastructure, as well as a firewall, as extra control points that we can pull strings on if we feel like an organization is under attack. And of course, it continues to be the case as well that Sophos operates an open ecosystem. So if end users have invested in different security products and different technologies from different places, as much as possible, we want to take in telemetry from all those different places and present that either to the user if they're running their own security team using XDR, or present that to our MDR team for them to be able to first of all, see the whole attack chain, but also it helps to spot attacks that might be hiding out in areas that maybe Sophos don't play in.
Yeah.
And of course, 2025, of course, one of the big headlines has been our acquisition of SecureWorks, which has really changed the game of those integrations. So we've always had this concept of having an open ecosystem, but thanks to the tech that we've brought in from SecureWorks, we now support in excess of 350 vendors that we can take information from. And you also have the ability to custom write your own integration. So if you've got some niche product, or even things like door control systems or stuff that you maybe traditionally you wouldn't think of as being part of the cybersecurity fabric, you can still bring that information into the ecosystem. And like I said, either look at it using Sophos XDR or have our MDR team look at that information.
Yeah, definitely.
And that again is a theme that will continue.
Yeah, I say that kind of leads on nicely. There was 2 points you brought up there that I was going to touch on for obviously development into 2026. But one of the things I wanted to mention just prior to that is obviously there's been quite a lot of push on developing customers to go from XDR to MDR. Just obviously while we're getting to the end, while we're getting obviously into the start of 2026, what would be the benefits of the change from or a customer upgrading from XDR to MDR?
Okay. So cybersecurity is hard, first of all, and I think you probably want to take a step back and maybe look at why endpoint protection is not enough. Hopefully most people listening to this will already realise that going out and buying technology in 2025 and expecting it to cover you for every single attack vector is unrealistic. The cyber criminals are incredibly sophisticated, and because of the huge cybercrime ecosystem that exists, there's no shortage of human skills to be able to attack an organisation. So they're not sending out malware and attachments on emails and hoping for the best. When you're dealing with an adversary, then you are almost certainly dealing with a human being. And human beings were all blessed with the ability to problem solve and come at things in different ways and try different things out and also learn from each other. And, the cybercrime fraternity are really, really adept at sharing intel and sharing techniques and tactics with each other, which all means that ultimately, no matter what technology you put in place, there will always be some kind of attack vector that the cyber criminals can exploit.
Yeah.
So that's the first given, that endpoint protection on its own isn't enough. So the next question is, what do we need instead? And what you need is skilled human threat hunters to be able to detect the telltale signs that something is not quite right in the organisation. Humans have spidey senses, if you will, that look at things and think, well, that's not quite right. This doesn't look like normal behaviour, in a way that technology, like even artificial intelligence, doesn't really have just yet. So they can conceptualise attacks, they can contextualize them and realize that maybe something is out of kilter. Users just logged in from deepest, darkest Peru and they're not there because I can see them in the office just over the way. These kind of things that tech doesn't really do very well, humans are very, very good at. And what you need is some kind of platform to elevate that information to pass it through to a human analyst. And this is where the choice comes, whether you want to go down the route of XDR or whether you want to go down the route of MDR. So with XDR, what we do is we provide the tool set. And then that tool set is provided to either the channel partner or to the end user. And they have a dashboard. They have arguably the world's best set of tools to go and search for these kind of insidious attacks, which is all very well and good. But much like going out and buying technology, going out and buying a set of tools and expecting to become skilled in that area may not be realistic. Let's be honest, if I go out to the sports goods shop and I buy myself a set of boxing gloves, I'm not instantly going to become a fighter. The tools is one thing, the ability to use it is something else. So end users and channel partners, for that matter, actually have to be quite realistic with themselves about, can I become a threat hunter? Or can I afford to hire a threat hunter? And actually, it's not just as simple as hiring one threat hunter, because the cyber criminals work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that means that you've got to have eyes on glass monitoring the stuff 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that is potentially in reach of some organisations, but for a lot of smaller organisations, that's unrealistic. It's too expensive. It's too logistically challenging. It's really hard to retain threat hunters as well, because there's 5 job vacancies for every threat analyst. Yeah,
it's something, the skills gap when it comes down to security roles and security jobs is astronomical.
Absolutely, yeah. So what you've got is a situation where you've got people literally leaving for double money in some cases, right? So you can hire a team and then you'll lose them almost immediately. So it's really difficult. Anyway, you can choose to do that if you want to. You're on your own team. Now, I would argue that that's probably not the right way to do cybersecurity these days. If you look at some of the headline grabbers in 2025, if major retailers, car manufacturers, banks, building societies, hotel chains, if they can't do cybersecurity properly with all of the resources that they've got, then how would you expect the Acme Sprocket company with 25 employees to do cybersecurity properly?
Yeah.
So this is where the alternative comes in, which is managed detection and response.
Yeah.
The upgrade path to get to MDR is really moving away from technology to actually providing cybersecurity as a service. So what we do with our MDR team is we take telemetry from obviously our own products, but also this smorgasbord of 350 other cybersecurity vendors, feed all that information into this kind of hive mind, which then, yes, we do use technology to gravitate the interesting things through to a threat analyst as fast as possible. And what it will also do as part of that mechanism is it will take all the signals that we're seeing from different areas and correlate them together.
Yeah.
Because even a basic attack is going to have signals at your firewall, at your switch level, at your access points, the endpoints, maybe SaaS. There's a whole combination of signals that go into an even basic attack. So we bring it all together, put it in front of an analyst, and then this is where the analyst gets to shine. So we have threat hunters all over the world operating on a shift basis. So there's somebody looking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The interesting stuff arrives to them and they start to investigate this. Is this a real problem? If it is real, how big is the problem? And then what do we do about it?
Yeah.
So it's taking that emphasis off the end user to have to do threat hunting themselves and then empowering our team to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if they find something that's real, then a choice has to be made at this point, which is actually part of the onboarding process. So there's essentially 3 different tiers of response action that we can do. The first of them is that if an end user wants to be phoned at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning, that is their prerogative, and we will absolutely do that. So we will wake people up and we will tell them what we've seen and give them guidance on what to do. That's one course of action. The next course of action is there might be a channel partner involved.
Yeah.
So many people listen to this podcast. There might be managed security partners. They might have a support desk that runs maybe 24 hours a day, maybe 9 to 5 Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
We can call them and do exactly the same thing. This is what we've seen in your customer. This is what's going down. This is what you need to do to go fix the problem. The other course of action that we've potentially got is for Sophos to come in and actually deal with the issue.
Yeah.
So what we can do in those scenarios is we can detect the malicious accounts at play, shut down malicious processes, and then offer guidance back to the end user. This is what we've seen. This is what we've done about it. And this is our recommendations for the future. Okay. Now you can kind of mix and match these response modes. So for example, if the end user wants to be called Monday to Friday 9 to 5, if the channel partner wants to be called Monday to Friday 9 to 5, we'll do that. Out of hours, that's when we take over. But the ultimate concept really is plugging the gaps that an end user and a channel partner don't have coverage for. So if there's not 24 hours a day, they don't have threat hunters at all, whatever it might be, then we come in and basically fit around their ability to respond, but also, again, just going back to that concept of technology integrations, also fitting around whatever they've bought. So this is really quite refreshing. If you're a channel partner and engaging in a conversation around cybersecurity, traditionally it's always been a rip and replace conversation. What have you got today? That's maybe not the best choice. You really want to buy this thing, right? And nobody really likes... Well, nobody likes buying cybersecurity anyway. I mean, newsflash, nobody wants to buy this stuff. Or we have to. But then they also don't like change, right? You've invested in this thing, and now all of a sudden you've got to go back and ask for more money to get rid of it. And that can be quite awkward. If you've gone to the board and said, I need to buy this latest and greatest widget, and then like 5 minutes later you're taking it away again, they start to question your judgment. The real nice thing about this kind of open security ecosystem is whatever you've got, the tool set you've got, we'll work with it. We'll take that telemetry from wherever. Now, if you want to buy Sophos tech, which again we're going to talk about in another episode, great, happy days. But if you already got whatever product that you've purchased, we'll work with it. And then what we do is actually help to unlock extra value. Because if you've bought a checkpoint firewall and you're not looking at the logs, you're not getting the best out of that product. It's as simple as that. So unlocking that extra value is really important. I
think it is really important. I think that the whole having a vendor thinking they'll have every single security product, or a customer will have every single security product from one place. I think them days have kind of gone for the most part. I think most people do want to kind of spread their things across kind of multiple different bits and pieces. So it's obviously where you can get the most value out of the products that you're putting into it. And as you say, you don't want to be chopping and changing your products every 5 minutes, because at the end of the day, you've put the thing in, you don't want to have to then reset it up every 5 minutes, because that leads to more errors and potentially, again, kind of an expanded kind of footprint for a kind of a an attacker to get into the business, I suppose, if you're constantly having to reconfigure a firewall every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So having it coordinated together, at least get that intel together is really important. I mean, there's a bigger story as well. So, I'm sure we're the world's largest provider of cybersecurity as a service. So you look at the organisation count, and right now, as we're recording, we've got about 35,500 organisations across the globe that are consuming this service. And I always think it's a bit like a giant cybersecurity club. Because what we are very, very good at Sophos is industrialising the process of taking the things that we've learned and pushing it back down to the technology layer. Let's be candid, analysts are expensive, their time is precious. And what we don't want to ever do is waste an analyst's time by going through the same threat investigation multiple times. It's not good use of their resources. So we are very, very good at taking what in the industry we call the IOCs, the TTP, so basically the tools, the tactics, the processes of the cybercrime activity, and then feeding that information into our products. So let's take a basic example. If we investigate a phishing attack in Peru, again, for argument's sake, then about 45 minutes later, customers here in the UK, Ireland and Europe, they're all protected against the same threat because we've taken the source email addresses, the web addresses it's trying to get you to click on, the key characteristics of the email, and we push that down to our email product. So the next time that threat pops up in another organisation, then we don't even bother analysts with it because the text blocked it. And then we're on to the next challenge, and we're maximising the use of the human resources. What it means as a Sophos customer is, like I said, it's a giant cybersecurity club. Everybody benefits from it. And that's the sort of thing that if you're an MSSP and you're thinking, well, maybe I stand up my own SOC, you may well be able to find a bunch of really good analysts, but you're only going to have a view of your local geographic area, right, or your industry, or whatever you specialise in. That will be your view. Sophos has this global reach that just you can't do as an MSSP with the best will in the world. And, most other MDR vendors don't have anywhere near the same kind of scale either. So they're not seeing the same kind of volumes of telemetry that we do. So that's that real kind of hidden advantage of MDR.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as you say, if you set up your own SOC, the cost outlay in the first instance is fairly extreme. I think the last thing I saw was around £2 million or something like that to set up your own from scratch. So be able to have a vendor that can pretty much do it for you for probably a fraction of the cost is
absolutely. But it doesn't mean that the channel partner is not part of the value chain. Because one of the common objections that we're going to get is, well, if you're going to do all this stuff, then what's in it for me as a channel partner? But as I already mentioned, we can call you. You guys can be the hero that fixes the problem. And you may or may not declare that your service is powered by Sophos. That's your choice, right? So that's one option that you've got. But there's also that whole kind of onboarding process. So if you're going to buy Sophos tech, it needs installing. If you're going to use the tech that's already out there, it needs to be integrated with MDR. So these are all value opportunities to provide things like professional services. And then, that then snowballs out into all the other stuff that you can do, the security reviews, the vulnerability assessments that we offer as part of our managed risk service, ITDR. There's this whole kind of other allied services that then start to wrap around there once you kind of get down that process of providing cybersecurity as a service. But yeah, I think you're right. It's foolhardy in 2025 and beyond to try and set up your own SOC because it's just the economics of it just don't add up.
So we've spoke a lot about 2025. Let's look forward now to 2026. So obviously one thing you touched on was SecureWorks. Obviously that was a massive acquisition earlier in the year. It'd be interesting to see what Sophos have got planned for that acquisition in terms of where things are going to be rolled in and where it's going to be utilised. I think there's obviously a lot of plans for kind of some products to chop and change throughout or going into 2026. It'll be good to kind of hear about what the plans are and what the changes are going to be going forward.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. So with any technology acquisition at the scale that we're talking about, there is an element of crossover. So there's some things that traditional Sophos have done that SecureWorks also do, but actually there's so many more things that in the portfolio where we don't play and they haven't played historically, and this union is just absolutely perfect. It plugs so many different areas. The biggest thing that we're going to see during 2026 will be the rollout of traditional Taegis abilities to take in telemetry from this wide range of cybersecurity vendors and have that rolled into Sophos. So the number of integrations that are available when you log into Sophos Central will change very, very quickly. And we're going to have this ability as well to also ingest telemetry from non-standard sources. So the ability to write your own integrations effectively. So that's going to be a very quick change. This will also bring in as well the ability to have next generation SIEM capabilities as well. So, you could argue that if you're having MDR, do you really need a SIEM? But of course, SIEMs exist for a whole bunch of compliance reasons, as well as a functional security perspective. Now, SecureWorks brings with it a next generation SIEM capability, which we will, of course, bring into Sophos Central as well. So all this great telemetry that we're bringing in for security analysis, we can also then store all that data for compliance purposes and allied security functions as well. So we're going to see that happening as well. So we'll see this union of capabilities coming into Sophos Central, which will be all things from Taegis and also all the great stuff from a protection perspective that you're used to at Sophos. So key emphasis is what you have known as Intercept X, which is now Sophos Endpoint, all those great capabilities, world-beating cybersecurity endpoint protection, that will continue into the future as part of this overall integration story. And what we're also doing is bringing in additional capabilities into the portfolio as well. So we've saw in, I want to say 2024, the ability to take in information from Tenable as part of our managed risk service. SecureWorks brings with it ITDR, which, okay, it's here in 2025, but it will continue to be a key part of that integration into 2026. So looking at the areas of identity and offering additional value around managing the potential vulnerabilities that you've got there. We're also offering a bunch of services. So SecureWorks have a very wide professional services capability, which you will see as part of an onboarding process, also as part of a security assessment capability, roundtables. You'll see penetration testing been added into the line card. So that gives us capabilities to perform internal and external penetration testing, also wireless pen testing, application testing. And then as we move through the year, then the more niche areas that SecureWorks have offered historically will also become part of the Sophos portfolio. So the really fun stuff like hacking products. So if you happen to be watching this and you're an electric car manufacturer, let's have a go and see if we can break your interface. Also things like physical penetration testing. So like, can we get into the building? Can we sneak in? And what can we do when we get there? Which I'm going to apply for that job because I think that might be one of the coolest jobs in the world to do that. So all those capabilities will be wrapped together. And what you'll see as well is this continuation of, as much as we've said we don't want to rip and replace and have Sophos end to end, we do want to have a story that allows people to unlock extra value by having multiple different Sophos products. So you'll see this continuation of capabilities where we see a detection in one place that has results somewhere else. So things like synchronized security, active threat response, we'll see a continuation of that. We'll also see an element of automation as well. So playbooks, runbooks, where we're seeing an issue, then we can reconfigure things along the way to prevent an attack from spreading, to contain attacks. So it's a really exciting year, I think, coming down the line is 2026, with all these extra capabilities and all the great minds and all the great talent coming together and really working on giving better security outcomes to all of our customers.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there's a lot of change and a lot of really positive change going forward. I think that's probably a really good point to end this episode, and then we can start looking at obviously further developments and different product sets and everything going into 2026 now. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today, John, and I hope you all enjoyed that episode. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much, John.